Hey, welcome. It's Jason with JRC. I'm just setting up right now, trying to get this shared out to a couple places. Obviously, it's going to be a live. I don't do anything scripted or anything, so to kind of get what you get. But we'll get to it here in just a second. Hey, Sean. Yeah, I gotta do a little something to sweeten the deal sometimes. Let's see here. What's going on, Kevin? I gotta flip this around because comments are going the wrong direction. Chat top down. There we go. Alright. So, I'm going to try to make this pretty as straightforward as I can. Obviously, I'm not going to take the time it takes to completely build up a chassis. But I will cover any issues or concerns that have come up so far. And kind of go over some of the tricks to put it together where it's you have the least amount of headache or problems. There's a couple guys that have already got theirs, started building them. There's some questions that they had about how the let me see if I can get my phone. I can't read. I can't read any comments from over there. Let's see here. Just give me a second. Alright, the page. There we go. Alright, now I can see what people are writing. Alright, so yeah, so anyways, alright, so I'm going to use the RT, the truck chassis, because I have it sitting here. Like I said, I'm not trying to build one up. I just want to go over some of the things that people had issues with or concerns when they were doing theirs. Also, I wanted to point out just a quick plug. If anybody's looking for sealed bearings for the transfer case, I have those available, and they're on the website now as well to go along with any axle or differential bearings that you might need. But anyways, so once you got everything apart from the LMT, I went over that in an earlier video, and I'll post a link to that video. Basically just a teardown of the LMT, which is pretty much a complete teardown. You can kind of save yourself the headache and not have to take all the cross supports off, because if you got the Pro Chassis, those are basically irrelevant, because you get, these are just a couple examples, but you get several pieces to replace the stock ones, because now the chassis is wider, and the old pieces won't work because they're too narrow. So when you're taking it apart, as long as you can get the chassis plates off and get everything taken apart, then you're fine. Typically, I like to take the transmission apart first and just get it out of the way. And like I said, the other video has an example of how to disassemble the transmission and take it off the bottom of the chassis. Because really, besides the cross supports, there's 3 of them. down around the transmission itself. That's really the only parts of this besides the battery tray and electronics tray that you're going to use on the Pro Chassis, but everything else is pretty much useless except for the wheelie bar, because there are parts and pieces to widen your wheelie bar, so you can use it on this chassis as well. Some people may not want it, but it's an option to put on there nonetheless. You can still run your stock shock setup, because you have your outer holes for the stock setup, as well as you can run trailing arm shocks with the provided holes. If you notice also on the Pro Chassis right here, the stock sway bars have been deleted, and to allow you more adjustment holes for the positioning of your sway bars, depending on how you want to set it up, whether it's a shock or the stock shock mounted spot up here, or the trailing arm set up here. Either way. But so the first thing that I would do, and again, the options to put braces and supports and stuff in here are completely up to you. I have built them, or they send out with parts to do, you know, almost any variation of what you might want to do with it. I have, you know, my preferences, and you might have yours, but all in all, you'll have a front support, you'll have a back support, or rear support. You'll have your cross pieces, support pieces for your shocks to mount to, and then you'll have some support tubes. These right here, and these here are the plastic ones, and hopefully by mid-March all the chassis will be sent out with the metal version of these, which are going to be 8mm 7075 aluminum. These are just temporary. You know, some people are complaining that I'm sending out a chassis with, you know, whatever subpar components or what have you, but you know, I'd rather have you guys, because these do work. I used them on the prototype, and actually I think I still got some on the prototype that I use, and they're just fine. But this is not the finished piece of the the build, which everybody that has already purchased one will get those in the mail once they come in, and then hopefully, like I said, by mid-March any chassis going out will have them in there already. You're going to have you have two cross supports. There are two different lengths. The longer one is for the rear that goes between the wheelie bar. Let me grab my truck, I'll show you. Alright, so that cross support goes right here. It replaces the stock one to make it wider, and then your wheelie bar, your wheelie roller will kind of just float in between there. But you can also put M3 by 25mm bolts through each end to stiffen that up to keep it from breaking. I've had mine on there since the get-go, and I haven't had any issues with it. The bearings kind of slide back and forth, but you can take the screw out, push the bearing back in, and go about your day, but it doesn't interfere with how it works. Now with the Pro Chassis, you will notice when you're driving it, when you do get it up on the wheelie bar, the truck's more vertical than the stock, because the wheelie bar sticks out quite a bit further, so you don't get you get that kind of pop, and then it kicks your back wheel up, whereas this, you just fall right straight back onto the wheelie bar. I can kind of show you what I mean, but you know, when you're under load, you're almost completely vertical, whereas, you know, in a stock one, you're sitting about right there, and then when you hit the bar, it kind of pops the wheels up and throws you off and all that stuff. So anyways, but yeah, so long one, wheelie bar, short one goes, I don't have it on this one, and I don't have the other one built up, but it goes right here on the top of the cab. I'm using 2 of the metal bars that I got for the test and prototype pieces, which will end up being the stock ones as well, but I put 2 of them up there, put a piece of Velcro across it, same thing up here to mount the body too. I'm using the Mortison, J-Concepts Mortison body on this truck. Some people were talking about the headers. I saw James put a post out there, and someone was knocking about the headers being up front. They are a little bit further back, and obviously once you see the truck, and I'm sure James can attest to this. You can move them forward a little bit, but depending on if you're running, if you're not running the trailing arm shocks, then you can move them up into one of those holes to move it more forward, so it's more scale if that's what you're going for. Of course, if you're running scale, you're probably not going to be running trailing arm shocks. You're probably going to be running them off the axle, so you'll have that availability to move them forward. But essentially, this chassis was a flip from the stock. So where they were stock in the front or in the rear, they're now this equal distance in the front. Just for effect. If you want to go all out in scale, then you can make adjustments and change it the way you want. Other than that, I'm more of a function over form kind of guy. I like to build it to just take pure hell and survive. If I wanted to do a scale build, I would definitely do it differently, but that's not my area of interest. Although, like I said, you can move it around, you can make it scale. The whole inspiration for this was talking to Ryan. Got some inputs from him about how to position things in the chassis. So I'm not taking credit for all of it, but so I had some inputs from several people that ran it well before it was released. And I took those inputs and I tried to put them into a practical use as best I could with the restraints that were on here. Some people talking about the chassis, you could just flip the diff around and all that stuff. Well, yeah, you could, but the whole point of this is not to. The whole point of this was not to just flip the electronics around and stuff like that. It was to give some character to the chassis, make it smaller so it's more efficient, compact, lower for center CG, just an all-out machine that you can pretty much do whatever you want with. Hey James, how you doing? Alright, so back to the chassis. Sorry, I said I don't do anything scripted, but you're going to get some cross supports for the shocks. They have little notches in them. That's where the provided M3 nylocks go into to actually hold the shock or give it extra strength and stability. Other than that, like I said, you'll get several of these cross supports. You can put them wherever you want, as long as you don't want them to interfere with the overall. Hey Pete. You don't want them to interfere with the overall function of the truck, being able to put the battery in and out and things like that. You're also going to get, because the battery tray, you're using the stock battery tray, and then for the rear, I use a stock fuel cell. Where's it at? I use a stock fuel cell and put it in the back of my truck using only half of the tank. You take the bolt out here, you separate the two halves, and now you use the actual kind of detailed piece. And eventually I'll probably paint this and stuff, but just to give it the appearance of it has a fuel cell in it for whatever reason. I mean, it was a convenient place to put it, and that's kind of how it worked out. So with the kit, you're also going to get these. You're going to get 4 of these little 3mm thick spacers. They're just printed plastic. They're going to go in between the tank and each side of the battery tray to make up the difference that's lost with the chassis being a little bit wider in that area than it is with stock. Those can be tricky to put in, but as I told a couple people that asked, when you're putting this together, the way I do it is basically as you see it right here. Right, this is obviously not the Pro Chassis, but same principle, same concept. Yeah, I tried to make it as versatile as I could. There's a lot of features. I mean, you'll notice when you see it, there's several holes in places that you're like, okay, why are there holes there? But those holes are there for future ideas or iterations of this chassis. One being James Feeney, he did up a video of his, and he just made a modification to his to relocate some of the components in there, which basically gets rid of the wings on the battery and ESC compartment area, so it's just everything's centralized. There are a couple holes in the chassis. If you look at the chassis here, there's where your receiver and everything goes. There's a couple holes in the bottom and a couple holes in the top up here. That is for a cover plate of some sort. I haven't got that far yet, but it was built into the chassis to do that on both sides. So you have the exact same setup on the other side. You see the two holes across the top, and then the two holes where your tray and everything mount at the bottom. So that was built into it, for one. Also, what I didn't put out in the other video is your crash cage bars. Yeah, it's a huge weight reduction. Like I said, as this truck is sitting in front of you right now, as it sits, this truck is just over a pound lighter than a stock LMT out of the box. And it's got all the metal upgraded components and stuff in it, axles, knuckles, everything. It's lower. The battery and everything sits a little bit lower. It's not much. It's about 10 millimeters lower in the chassis. The chassis is not as tall. It's not as top heavy because all the weight is lower. I mean, everything else geometry wise is the same as the stock one, but that was another thing that I tried to do, is just make it lighter. But anyways, so this crash bar body mount thing here, if you notice, for those of you who got the chassis, you'll notice that there's holes in the bottom location. Let me see here. You'll notice that there's holes. Well, whatever. Anyways, there's holes. There's three sets of two holes on the chassis that correspond with where this thing mounts. Because basically, you take the right side, you flip it, put it on the left. Take the left side, flip it, put it on the right. On the right-hand side, it does not line up properly because of the way the transmission sits in there. It's a slightly different setup. But on the left side of the truck, it'll actually mount as it's supposed to. But by flipping everything around, and I shifted things around just a little bit, it actually, the bottom hole right behind the header on this side, the hole right behind the header, it doesn't line up properly. The intention was to leave that as an option. My thing was going to be to just cut. If you look at this here, you have like the tripod pieces here, there's three, is to cut it off right behind there, just to mount underneath the receiver to give it a little bit more stability. Yeah, Sean, like I said, as this truck sits with everything that I offer for this truck, plus the trail axles which I offer, the knuckles, the sway bars, the trailing arms, everything that's on here, you're just over a pound lighter than stock. And I've literally, there's videos on here, I've sent this thing, I go off about a 4.5 foot dirt jump and send it 35 to 40 feet easy each time. And this thing, it takes it. I haven't had any issues. I have these are the flower pot, the metal flower pot wheels adapters for the J Concept, and they use the 17 millimeter. These are prototypes, so don't get too excited. They're coming. Should be here probably mid-March, but these utilize the 17 millimeter hex that comes stock on the LMT. And I did that for several reasons. One, obviously, with a larger truck, the weight and everything, there's a reason why they put 17 millimeter hexes on there, not 12, even though that is an option. But you have more surface area to bite onto. The hubs themselves, if you're not racing and worried about taking your wheels on and off all the time, there's two grub holes, one on either side opposite each other, and those actually screw in, the grub screws screw in and actually go into where the divots are on the hex, where the hex pin goes in. So it physically locks the hub to your hex nut. So even if your hub nut comes off, the hex is not, or the hub and your wheel is not coming off. So that's an added extra thing, mainly for if you're doing bashing. If you're racing and you need to take them on and off really quick, then obviously that's probably not going to be your best option, because you have to physically take the wheel off the hub to get the hub off of the axle if you do it that way. Otherwise, you could slip it on there, tighten it down, and run it just like you normally would anything else. But these offer a unique, as far as I know, no one else has done this, but a feature to allow you to lock it onto the hex. Like I said, which comes in handy. Yeah, so this, Brian, this is my JMT Pro RC, which is a race cage, and then the JMT Pro RT, which is the race truck. So that's the difference between the two, the RC and RT. But this is the RC sitting here. This is a cage version. Yep, 9 pounds 14 ounces. Yep. See, this is mine is 9. As mine sits right here, it's 9 pounds 3 ounces, 4 ounces, something like that, without a body, no battery, anything like that. And also your motor and ESC are also going to play into the overall weight. I'm running a Hobby Wing XR8 ESC with a 3660 4300 kV motor. So that would probably dictate some of the weight changes or variations from truck to truck and builder to builder. So, but nonetheless, so back to the build. All right. No problem, Brian. If you have any other questions, just let me know. So I'm trying to make this quick. One second. I'll be right back. I had to turn the air on. A little sweaty. Anyways, so yeah, back to the truck. So when you're putting this thing together, the best way I found to do it, the easiest way I found to do it, again, this is not the Pro Chassis, but this is the same general idea. See how I put the supports on one side of the chassis? I would do that on the motor side, put all the supports, mount them to the motor side, and then what you would do is take your electronics and go ahead and mount them good view here. Mount them in the chassis as well, where they're going to be positioned. One, it makes it easier to put your little spacer back here on the back, and two, you can't get this in there when you bolt the two chassis pieces together, as a couple of you guys have already found that out. But so that's the easiest way to do that. You can take the battery tray apart. There's two screws. There's two screws, one on either side of the battery tray, that hold the strap in. You take those out and get them out of the way, and then there's two screws on the tray itself that attaches it to the ESC and receiver tray. Then you can put it back together if you had to, but if you're building this up from scratch, you don't really have to worry about that. Another thing that you want to do is your transmission plate or cover, outer cover. You want to go ahead and put that in place like so. Okay, because there's three screws on the back here that you're not going to be able to get to necessarily when the other half of this is on there and the transmission's in place. So you want to go ahead and put this on there now, put your three screws in on the back side, and then that way that's out of the way and you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, I was trying. This is usually the only time I can get out there and get videos done, because I got my guys coming my shop right now, and until 4 o'clock Eastern time, my guys are working, and you know, they're making noise and stuff, so I can't do that. Then I got to deal with the kids in the evening, so. Not deal with them, not in a bad way, but it's the kids in the evening, so this is really the only time that I have to do it. So I know it's not opportune, but I can do it, and then some people can watch, some people can't, and they come back through and watch it later. But anyways, that's cool. Yeah, just if you have any questions while you're messing with it, if I'm on here, just let me know. But what to do is MT10. Yeah, Brian, I don't have an X10. I have a TRX4, which I haven't done any with. I got it just because I like the Blazer and it looks pretty. I mean, I'll probably use it at some point, but I haven't yet. I do have SMT stuff as well on the site, jercustomdesigns.com. I have a bunch of SMT stuff. I got axles for those, chassis, the sway bars, most of the stuff that you see for the LMT, I also have for what I have for the SMT or LMT. I have for the SMT because that's where everything started from, and then I kind of hybridized it or modified it to work on here, because the chassis are pretty much the same design. Both Percy and APEP are the names of the chassis, but they were just retrofitted to work with the new LMT setup. Sean, what do you mean the battery mounting for the Pro? I guess I got closed captions turned on or something. I'll wait for your response here a second, but I'll kind of generalize. The battery mounting for the Pro is inverted, or 180 degrees out. So where it was sitting in the back before, now it's in the front. Same mounting position, same holes, just flipped around, and it's down. It sits down a little bit lower in the chassis. I am working on also. Again, you'll see several holes along right up underneath the cab area that go across here. This is for, if you guys know about my SMT stuff, I have a modular electronics mounting kit that goes with that, to where you can kind of put your electronics wherever you like. So these holes here, up here, and there's also, you can use these down here, or for mounting, say, your battery tray in a different location, or like James Feeney did. He kind of just relocated himself using the stock parts. However, the design was built into it to be able to use the same kind of setup as my SMT style chassis do, where you can kind of mount your electronics wherever you like within the chassis. So it makes it a little bit easier to kind of adjust your weight. If you want weight a little bit more forward, you can adjust your battery a little bit more forward and get the weight more forward. Or if you need it back, you can kind of move it around wherever you want. You're not limited on how to do that. So that is something that is coming. I don't have it available yet. Again, there's a lot of things designed into this that aren't available yet. Like there's holes around where you put the motor through that are threaded already. That is to have a bolt-on shield of some sort. Originally it was going to be acrylic, but I will probably end up doing it metal, and it'll have a design cut in it to kind of flow with everything else, so it'll kind of fit in, and that was the original intention anyways. But like I said, it was to be acrylic because it's something that I can do here in-house completely, and I can engrave it, I can cut it, I can do pretty much anything I want with it. So that was the whole idea about using acrylic. So that is something to come as well. You can also use your stock. I know I pointed this out in the video, but you can also use your stock. Whatever it's called, the sponsor plate. On either side, you can use your stock sponsor plates. All the holes are there to do that. So just flip it. You flip it 180 degrees. That's all you do. So where the square opening in the front of the chassis is here, and on the stock chassis, it's up front. You flip it 180, it's in the back. So that's how that goes inside there. Otherwise, it mounts exactly the same. Your cross supports right here. Oops. Your cross supports right here. These three pieces, if you can see them. I can't tell if you can see them, but these three pieces right here, and the transmission, and that's basically the headers is about all you need off the original truck for the Pro. Everything else is supplied in the kit. You got your trailing arms, which there's your trailing arm. So you can either it comes without rod ends. You put your stock rod ends on it, and they're made to length for stock rod ends. As I said in another video, you can use the Techno. Someone else I think has the the part number for it, but the Techno rod ends. You can use those on your upper and lower links, and you can give the truck about another 20 millimeters of extension, which is about 30 or 3/4 of an inch ish. But I am working on a extension kit that'll give you about 1.5 inches of extension, and that will include a drive shaft, which is, I'll show it. I'm trying to keep it a little hush hush, but this was originally coming out for the SMT. It's 304 stainless steel, replaceable ends. So you can swap out the ends. You can put a 5 millimeter on this end, a 6 millimeter on this end, and you can use the LMT axles on your SMT. So this is coming out soon. Just going through the final stages of getting this together. But yeah, so this will virtually be a bulletproof or bomb proof or whatever proof you want to call it, explosion proof axle, because as most of you know that run SMTs, their drive axles or drive shaft pieces are junk. They're just cheap junk. These will be a little bit more expensive. I'm trying to keep it in the same price point as some of the better ones. But this will definitely be one of the best ones, and it's also going to be, like I said, available or able to work with the LMT as well as the SMT just by swapping out your ends. So anyways, Does anybody have any questions about anything? I tried to make this as quick as possible. I don't know how long this has been going for, but 36 minutes, not bad. I was just trying to blow through it. People can pause it as you go through, as you need to, at the different spots if needed, just to kind of figure it out. Yeah, well, I'm chomping at the bit to get this done too. I would have already had these tested, but when they manufactured them, they actually they forgot to tap the holes on the end that actually go into the output shaft. So I have to get more made. So that kind of set me back a little bit. I haven't really mentioned much about it. I was trying to keep it a secret, but whatever. But yeah, this is heavy duty. I mean, it's not. They're actually kind of heavy, like literally. But when you got the support of a good axle, the weight, they're 2.7 ounces for a complete set or a complete piece. Or a complete drive shaft, 2.7 ounces, which I guess is not too bad, considering like the stock one here, this piece of junk. I won't mention a name. It's 1.7, so it's an ounce heavier for the stainless steel ones that I'm making. But again, and you got on these, you have I don't know if you can see. There's a set of holes. There's two sets of holes. There's a set of holes there and a set of holes there. So basically in a cross pattern, you got a set of holes that are further in, and then you got a set of holes that are further out. Mainly because of the SCS gearboxes, the hole for the shaft is sticking out a little bit more. So to allow the shaft to go in there a little bit further, you have an offset set of holes, and then you have a set of holes that are about standard for a drive shaft yoke. But yeah, so can't wait to test these out, see how they do. I think they're going to do really good, and finally have a drive shaft that'll hold up on a SMT, because I break drive shafts every time I go out. But anyways. Just rambling on, sorry. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I think I've covered everything. Oh, yes. Thanks, James, for bringing that up. I wanted to address that. Let me see here. Alright. So I have my universal transmission mount. Some of you guys may know what it is. I've seen it for SMTs. This is the universal mount for my SMTs. Now, if you get the chassis, or if you're looking at the chassis and you look down here at the bottom, there's a row of holes. If you look at your stock chassis, you'll see there's only 4 holes down here, whereas mine has 7 holes across here. Alright, and since this is a more scale truck, so to speak, I guess, with the axles and everything more realistic looking, I thought, okay, well, why don't we incorporate a drop gearbox in this chassis? Okay, so at some point, once I get the drive shaft situated, or if someone is mechanically inclined enough to create their own yoke for their build, you can get the optional build or transmission mount plate that accepts the offset gearbox, like a SMT style, ground pounder style, or the SCS gearbox for freestyle RC and RC four-wheel drive. So this plate actually goes down here on the bottom, mounts in those extra holes that are down there. And also, if you notice up top here, there's another hole at the top of this opening. That is where you mount the gearbox. The top of the gearbox is to that. Now you will need to figure out a way for spacers and stuff, because there's so many different options you can use. I provide the plate and the upper and lower plate to mount it, and depending on which gearbox you use, if you use a freestyle, I think it actually fits up here just fine. But a SCS for RC four-wheel drive is a little bit shorter, and it doesn't quite make it, so you have to put spacers in there. But that was the best I could do with, like, again, the options I had available. But you will be able to run a more scale setup with the gearbox like that in the future. I mean, you can get the plate now. I mean, but being able to adapt it, the shaft 5mm or 6mm, I'm working on a couple different ways. Plus, obviously, the option of my drive shaft that I'm working on. But yeah, so that'll be an option, or is an option, that you can do a scale gearbox on the LMT. I think that's pretty much all I have. Does anybody have any other comments or questions? Alright. Well, I believe that is all for this video. I hope I addressed all the questions or concerns that people were having. If not, leave me a comment, and I will definitely get back to you as soon as I can. And if enough questions come up about something, then I may do another video. But yeah, if you like it, if you haven't already gotten a chassis and you'd like to get it, or even take a look at what I have to offer, jercustomdesigns.com/shop. You can find all the stuff I offer for SMT, LMT, available there. Like I said, I got bearing kits now for the complete truck for LMT stock or with the Trio axles. I got the stainless steel, I can't really see it, stainless steel hardware kits, broken down into different sections so you don't have to get all of it if you don't want to. So yeah, that's about it. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, any ideas, or anything you'd like to see kind of come together for the LMT, I'm always open to suggestions. I'd love to hear your feedback, and to try to do what I can to fit the needs of the people. I don't like to just build stuff arbitrarily for one group of people. I like to try to keep it as general as I can. That way everybody can have a chance to enjoy it, and not just, you know, a certain group of people. But yeah, anyways, alright guys, well, have a good evening, and we will see you in the next video. Hey, you caught me there, Sean. Yeah, I was actually looking at doing a LED kit, but I'll mess with that later. But yeah, that is something that I've been looking at doing. Not necessarily for lighting up the logo, but just in general for the trucks. But anyways, all right. Just thought I'd hop back on there. I saw that at last minute. So all right, guys, take it easy.